It'd be heartbreaking to see any of our favorite players getting severely injured due to a careless policy. After the Tua Tagovailoa situation, both the NFL and the NFLPA have agreed that there needs to be a major change in the protocol of concussion, and they're calling it a necessary step that's needed to enhance the safety of players. In this video, we're going to talk about the new changes made by the NFL to their concussion protocol. First off, let's talk about why they felt that a change was needed. Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, got hit in the head during a game, but they had him return, saying it was just a back injury. After the tackle, he was diagnosed with a concussion. Tagovailoa stayed on the ground with his arms and fingers spread out in front of his face after his head hit the ground. Experts said this was a sign of a condition called decorticate posturing or fencing response, which happens when brain damage causes an involuntary reaction. Public health experts were outraged by the move, and the league and its players' union started an investigation. The NFL believes that the Dolphins follow the league's concussion protocol, but even though the investigation is still going on, both sides already know that the protocol needs to be changed. But it has been more of a slow change than a big change. Certain events have led to change by showing where there were problems. The situation with Tua did just that. The best news, besides the fact that Tua's fine, is the changes will be made that should make it less likely for a player to hit his head on the ground and then be forced to play again. We wouldn't want a player to go back on the field just minutes after his teammates had to hold him up. Next up, let's talk about the changes made to the NFL concussion protocol. The league's concussion protocol is meant to make sure that players get the best information about how to diagnose and treat concussions. The protocol was made by a group called the Head, Neck, and Spine Committee, which is made up of league doctors, scientists, and NFLPA advisors. When a player is thought to have a head injury, they must be taken off the field of play and checked out in a medical tent right away. After a 5-step evaluation, the player can only go back to the game if a doctor says it's okay. The player can't come back if he has gross motor instability that the team doctor, in consultation with the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant, determines neurological drama. In a joint statement released, the NFL and NFLPA said that they believe that changes are needed to improve player safety and that they expect changes to be made to the concussion protocol in the next few days. Following this, the league now claims that the gross motor instability loophole should no longer be continued. It was a loophole that let players who tripped back into the game if doctors said it wasn't because of a head injury. Moving on, how does the NFL concussion protocol work? If a player has signs of a concussion, the person who first noticed them will start the protocol. The player is taken into the sidelines and checked to see if he or she has a head injury. They'll be evaluated for so-called no-go symptoms, like losing consciousness, gross motor instability, confusion, amnesia, fencing response, impact seizure, and a history of concussions, and will also have to go through a focused neurological exam. Based on the results of the investigation into how Tua Tagovailoa's injury was handled, ataxia, which is defined as an issue with balance, stability, motor coordination, or speech caused by a neurological problem, was added to the no-go list. If a no-go is found, the player will not be allowed to go back on the field. If a player suffers a concussion, he or she must be checked out by a team doctor, a neurotrauma consultant, or an athletic trainer who is not part of the team. A follow-up neurological exam and regular evaluations by the medical team are part of the protocol. Even during that time, players can't come back into the game. Finally, what will the league's role be in this change? In football, as in most sports, the default is to get a player back on the field as soon as he can, not necessarily when he is healthy or not hurt. Tagovailoa should have taken out of football for a half last Sunday, out of caution, aka putting him back on the field that day and letting him play again, when the blow he took to the head might have made his injury worse. Many people's jobs is to protect a player for more than just a game or even the season, but with brain injuries, the goal is to protect their future as well. Even if the rules were followed, everyone who decided to put Tagovailoa back in the game let him down and didn't do what they were supposed to do. Players will almost always try to get on the field, and some coaches are sure to put pressure on players and doctors as well, but players are adults and should have a say in their own care. But there must also be other adults in the room who will push back to protect players from themselves. Were any of those people present with Tagovailoa in the locker room? When Justin Herbert hurt the cartilage in his ribs and was in pain and unable to play, people asked Chargers coach Brandon Stanley why he didn't pull him. Herbert should have been safe, and Tagovailoa should have been even safer because his head was involved. Now for some related news. Firstly, the quarterback Russell Wilson underwent surgery on his shoulder following the match with the Colts. Russell Wilson, the quarterback for the Broncos, had surgery to try to get rid of pain near his throwing shoulder. After the ugly 12-9 loss to the Colts, Wilson was on a plane to Los Angeles, where doctors gave him a PRP injection while his teammates were at the team building. Sources say Wilson had been dealing with a strained latissimus dorsi, which is more common in baseball players and isn't usually treated with an injection. He was listed as having a right shoulder injury on the injury report. Coach Nathaniel Hackett said Wilson's shoulder hurt because he dinged it up against the Raiders. Sources say that Wilson hopes that the injection and his personal medical team's care around the clock will speed up the healing process. Based on what's happened in the past and what experts have said, it's not clear if the injection will help his situation, but we really hope it does. Next up, Aaron Rodgers says the game against the Giants in London will be a special moment. The Packers are the last of the NFL's 32 teams to play an international game in the United Kingdom. It took until this year for them to do so, but when they play the New York Giants, Green Bay will finally play in London for the first time, and their quarterback Aaron Rodgers wants to put on a show for all of us. Rodgers said he thought about making some big passes during the game to get the crowd excited and give us something to remember. He also joked that he hadn't talked to his coach about how he's going to pull it off. He said he'd wait until Matt LaFleur wasn't so worried about getting ready for the game. Rodgers also thought about bringing the classic Lambeau leap with him and jumping into the crowd at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but he said he might have to ask a teammate to do it for him. We can't wait to see what he's got in store for us. Lastly, Coach Allen claims how the Saints are going to start off against the Seahawks. The Saints are using the red rifle again for the second week in a row. Coach Dennis Allen stated that Andy Dalton will likely start at quarterback for the New Orleans Saints when they play the Seattle Seahawks. Jameis Winston, who usually starts, might not be able to play because of a back or ankle injury. He didn't play in Week 4 when New Orleans lost to Minnesota in London. Allen also stated that receiver Michael Thomas will miss his second straight game because of a foot injury. Jarvis Landry, on the other hand, might not play because he hurt his ankle. The Saints have already had their fair share of injuries this season. This has led to a 3-game losing streak after they beat the Falcons in a comeback to the start of the season. Winston didn't look like the same quarterback who led New Orleans back from a big deficit in Atlanta, where he played in weeks 2 and 3. Instead, he looked uncomfortable and missed downfield targets all the time. Let's see how the Saints are going to do this time. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think about the NFL's new concussion protocol for its players? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.